Hello, my friend. The world of magic, filled with legends and ancient tales, is opening its gates once again. Tonight, in the Gryffindor dormitory by the crackling fireplace, I will share another story with my friends. Join us, for the magic is about to come alive.
The wind whistled over the roofs of London, carrying with it the faint hum of hidden magic, the kind that most muggles could never sense, though they might shiver without knowing why. Down below, the street lamps of Charing Cross flickered uncertainly, as if they too were afraid of something stirring in the shadows. Harry Potter stood beneath one of those lamps, his wand held low by his side, eyes scanning the misty street. It had been years since the war, yet his instincts had never dulled. The Ministry had sent him to investigate an unregistered magical surge, but Harry had learned long ago that such words were never simple. Somewhere in the city, something ancient had awakened. "Still nothing?" came a voice behind him. Hermione Granger appeared out of the fog, her cloak soaked with drizzle, a small brass device whirring in her hand. "I've tracked 3 spikes of uncontrolled energy within a 2-block radius. It's not like wand magic, Harry. It feels older, wilder." Harry frowned. "And you're sure it's not just one of George's experiments gone wrong again?" She shook her head. "No, this is beyond joke shop magic. Whatever's happening, it's drawing power from the earth itself." Before Harry could reply, a deep tremor shook the cobblestones underfoot. The lampposts flickered, and from somewhere distant came the sound of rushing wind, like the sigh of a sleeping giant. A pulse of golden light rippled through the street, bending the shadows before fading as quickly as it had come. Hermione and Harry exchanged a look. "Under London," she said quietly. "It's coming from below." They moved quickly, their boots echoing against wet stone, until they reached a narrow alleyway hidden between 2 bookstores. At its end, behind a rusted gate, was an ancient stairwell descending into darkness. Harry had never seen it before. Yet there was something familiar about it, something that stirred an old memory. "According to the Ministry records," Hermione murmured, consulting her notes, "there's no entry for any tunnel here. But I've cross-referenced this area with one of the oldest maps of magical London. There used to be a shrine here, centuries ago, dedicated to someone they called the London Shaman." "The what?" Harry asked. She smiled faintly. "An old legend. Before Hogwarts, before the Statute of Secrecy, wizards in London followed a guardian spirit who protected the city. The Muggles called him the Shaman of the Smoke. Supposedly his magic came from the heart of the city itself." Harry raised an eyebrow. "And you think this spirit's waking up?" Hermione hesitated. "I think something wants us to believe it is." They descended the stairwell, wands lit, the air growing colder with each step. The walls were slick with condensation, and the scent of earth and old stone pressed around them. At the bottom lay a circular chamber, half collapsed by centuries of neglect. Strange carvings lined the walls, lions, serpents, badgers, ravens, but all were fused together in swirling patterns, as if the magic of the 4 Hogwarts houses had once been united here. Harry stepped closer to one symbol, a lion carved in red stone, its eyes glowing faintly. "Gryffindor," he whispered. Hermione's breath caught. "It's reacting to you." The lion's eyes flared brighter, and the ground trembled again. From beneath the rubble, a low hum began to rise. Not sound exactly, but something felt in the bones. Then came a voice, distant and hollow, speaking in a tongue neither of them had ever heard. Harry raised his wand defensively. "Hermione, wait!" she cried. "It's not attacking, it's calling." But before she could finish, the red stone burst apart, revealing a faintly glowing orb within, no larger than a snitch, pulsing with golden light. The chamber filled with warmth, and for a moment Harry thought he heard the roar of a lion. Then the light vanished. In its place remained the orb, floating silently before them. Hermione reached out, but Harry caught her wrist. "Don't touch it." "I'm not sensing danger," she said, her eyes scanning the orb with fascination. "This energy, it's almost identical to Gryffindor's sword. It's as though the same magic forged both." Harry lowered his wand slightly. "Then why hide it here?" Before she could answer, a voice echoed down the stairwell, a voice both familiar and sharp. "Because, Potter, some relics were never meant to be found." They turned. Standing in the archway, wand drawn and eyes gleaming in the lamplight, was a figure Harry hadn't seen in years. Draco Malfoy. He was older now, more composed, yet the tension between them was instant and electric. "Malfoy?" Harry demanded. "What are you doing here?" Draco stepped closer, his cloak brushing the stones. "Cleaning up the Ministry's mess, apparently." "That thing," he nodded at the orb, "was sealed by my ancestors centuries ago. It's called the Heart of the Lion. And if you've just woken it, Potter, you've done something very foolish." Hermione's eyes narrowed. "You know about this relic?" Draco gave a short, humorless laugh. "Everyone in my family does. The founders may have built Hogwarts, but others built what came before it. My line was sworn to keep this thing buried. Because once the heart awakens..." He hesitated, glancing uneasily at the glowing orb. "The shaman wakes with it." A cold gust swept through the chamber. The orb flared once, twice, and then, in a flash of gold and shadow, it disappeared. The echo of its light lingered in the air, and far above, London trembled again. Somewhere in the dark, an ancient voice whispered, "The lion stirs." Harry exchanged a grim look with Hermione. Whatever they had found beneath the city was no mere relic. It was the beginning of something that had slept for 1,000 years. Morning broke over London with a pale, uncertain light. The city stirred, as if nothing unusual had happened, yet those attuned to magic could feel a faint vibration beneath their feet, a steady heartbeat pulsing from deep underground. Harry Potter sat in the corner of a dim ministry conference room, his tea untouched, listening as Kingsley Shacklebolt read through a report. 2 Muggle trains stalled near Charing Cross last night, Kingsley said gravely. Passengers claimed the tunnels filled with golden mist. The Obliviators are still untangling the memories. Beside him, Hermione scribbled notes furiously. The energy readings were off the scale, Minister. Whatever's under London isn't just a relic, it's alive. Draco Malfoy stood apart from them, arms crossed, a faint sneer curving his lips. "I told you as much. The heart of the lion was never meant to be touched. The old magic that binds it is wild, ancient. It doesn't follow your ministry laws." Harry looked up at him. "You keep saying it like you know exactly what this thing is." Draco met his gaze coolly. "Because I do. My family guarded records the ministry burned centuries ago. The founders of Hogwarts weren't the only ones shaping wizardry in Britain. There were others, guardians of the old ways. One of them was the London Shaman." Kingsley folded his hands. "And you expect us to take that at face value?" I expect you to stop pretending the Ministry controls everything beneath this city, Draco said sharply. The shaman's magic was rooted in the ley lines of London, the veins of the land itself. Disturb that, and you don't just risk a few magical surges, you risk waking him. The word him hung in the air like smoke. Hermione looked up from her parchment. If this shaman existed, where is he now? Draco's expression darkened. Bound, or so the legends say. Sealed when the four founders created Hogwarts. Because his power... He believed magic should never be hidden from muggles. He wanted to unite both worlds under one rule. His own. Harry frowned. So the founders imprisoned him? Draco nodded. In spirit, yes. His essence was divided, and the heart of the lion held one part of it. The fragment tied to courage, strength, and fury. That's what you woke last night. For a moment, no one spoke. The sound of quills scratching against parchment was the only noise in the room. Finally, Kingsley rose. We'll seal the site and assign Aurors to monitor it. Potter, you'll lead the investigation. Granger, assist him with research. Malfoy. I don't take orders from the Ministry anymore, Draco interrupted. Kingsley's gaze hardened. You will if you care about surviving this. You may have knowledge we don't, but if this shaman is truly stirring, we'll need every witch and wizard capable of holding a wand. Draco's eyes flickered, pride and reluctance warring in them, before he inclined his head ever so slightly. Very well. When the meeting broke, Harry caught Hermione's arm. You believe him? She sighed. Not entirely, but old magic always has some truth buried in its myths. If this shaman once walked these streets, there'll be traces, runes, writings, perhaps artifacts hidden beneath the city. And if he's not a myth, Harry asked quietly. Hermione looked toward the tall windows, where sunlight spilled weakly through the fog. Then we'll have to hope he remembers whose side he's meant to be on. That afternoon they returned to the site beneath Charing Cross with a small team of Aurors. The entrance was sealed by wards, shimmering faintly like liquid glass, but Hermione dismantled them with a flick of her wand. As they descended once more into the cold dark, Harry felt the same pulse in the earth, a steady rhythm, stronger now, almost like breathing. The chamber looked different. The carvings along the walls had deepened, as if the lion's eyes no longer glowed, but faint streaks of gold light now ran through the cracks in the stone floor, forming intricate patterns like veins. Something's feeding it, Hermione whispered. It's drawing power from the city, maybe from every spark of courage and emotion in it. Draco knelt beside the broken altar where the orb had floated. When the heart vanished, it didn't disappear. It returned to its rightful host. The shaman's spirit is gathering strength. Harry turned on him. You said he was bound. How could he be free again? The seals weaken when the balance between magic and muggle breaks, Draco said simply. Your war may have ended, Potter, but the world above has changed. Too much magic spilled into the open. Too many saw things they were never meant to. The old protections are crumbling. A soft sound rippled through the chamber. Like whispering leaves, Harry spun around, wand raised. The golden light on the floor began to shift, coiling into shapes. Faces formed within it, fleeting and ghostly. Muggles, wizards, children, all murmuring in unison. The lion stirs, they whispered again, their voices blending into a single haunting chorus. The city remembers. Then, as suddenly as they'd appeared, the faces vanished. Hermione shivered. Residual echoes, fragments of memory caught in the ley lines. Draco's jaw tightened. No, that was a warning. Harry stepped closer to the center of the room, feeling a prickling sensation at the back of his neck. Something in the air had changed. Thicker, more alive. If this shaman's returning, he'll come for the heart first. Draco gave a mirthless smile. And if he already has it, he'll come for something greater, the rest of himself. They left the chamber before dusk, sealing it with wards strong enough to stop a dragon. But that night, as Harry walked home through Diagon Alley, he felt eyes on him. The street was nearly empty, the shops dark. Yet he turned a corner and froze. A man stood at the far end of the alley, cloaked and hooded, face hidden. He held something in his hand. A staff carved from dark wood, crowned with a faintly glowing orb. The same golden hue as the heart. "Who are you?" Harry called, wand raised. The man didn't answer. Instead, he lifted the staff slightly, and a warm wind swept through the alley. The scent of earth and rain filled the air, and for a heartbeat, Harry thought he saw the faint outline of a lion's mane rippling behind him, made of smoke and light. Then the figure vanished. Harry stood frozen, the last traces of golden mist curling through the air. Somewhere distant, Big Ben struck midnight, and from beneath the city a deep, resonant roar echoed through the stones. Faint but unmistakable, as though something vast had drawn its first breath in 1,000 years. The London shaman had awoken. By morning, London felt wrong. It was subtle at first. Clocks running a minute too slow, owls refusing to fly over the Thames, a dull shimmer that passed over the river like heat haze, though the air was cold. But by noon, the signs were everywhere. Muggles gathered on bridges, staring down at the water that seemed to glow faintly from beneath. In the Auror office, Harry spread the morning reports across his desk. Magical interference in Westminster, vanishing charms disrupted across half of Soho, and in one particularly strange incident, a Muggle bus had driven straight through a cloaked building without harm, as if the barrier itself had flickered out of existence. Hermione stood by the window, eyes narrowed. The ley lines are shifting. London's magic is unstable. Whatever's causing this isn't just under the city anymore. It's spreading. Harry rubbed his temples. And no one's seen our mysterious hooded man since last night. The patrols found traces of gold residue near Diagon Alley, but nothing else. Neville Longbottom stumbled in, his robes stained with soot. "Harry, Hermione, you need to see this." They followed him through the Floo network to a quiet square near the river. At its center stood the ruins of an old fountain, or what had once been one. Now water poured upward in a column of shimmering gold, suspended in midair. The air thrummed with power. "It appeared at dawn," Neville explained breathlessly. "The wards around the nearby homes collapsed, and that's not the worst of it. Look closer." Hermione stepped forward. Within the golden water were faint shapes swirling like memories. Lions, eagles, serpents, badgers, Hogwarts symbols. "The magic of the founders," she whispered. "But it's not meant to exist outside the castle." Harry frowned. "You think the shaman's drawing power from Hogwarts itself? Not from the castle," Hermione said slowly, her mind racing. "From what it represents. The 4 virtues. Courage, wisdom, ambition, loyalty. He's feeding on them. The heart of the lion was only the beginning." Neville paled. "If that's true, he'll go after the others. Relics tied to the other houses." Draco Malfoy's voice came from behind them. Precisely. The heart is only one of 4 cores, each buried beneath a city tied to an element of magic. London was Gryffindor's, fire and courage. The others lie slumbering still. But once he gathers them all, he trailed off, eyes cold. Hermione finished softly. He'll be whole again. The golden column shuddered. The shapes inside began to twist, forming faces, ancient and strange. A voice rippled through the air, deep and commanding, neither kind nor cruel, but vast and weary. Children of wands and whispers, you have forgotten the old pacts. The city cries, and I rise to heal her. Harry took a step forward. Who are you? I am the keeper of the veins, the breath of smoke and stone. I am the Shaman of London. The voice rolled. The column of gold collapsed in an instant, soaking the ground. When the water cleared, the runes of Gryffindor glimmered faintly beneath the surface, then faded. Draco's expression was unreadable. He's not coming back in spirit, Potter. He's already here, in flesh, or something close to it. That night, as the storm clouds gathered above the city, Harry and Hermione pored over ancient texts in Grimmauld Place. The air smelled of parchment and candle smoke. Every scrap of legend they could find spoke of the Shaman, a being of both wizard and spirit, a bridge between worlds who once ruled the early enclaves of Britain before Hogwarts united the wizards. He wasn't evil, Hermione said quietly, flipping through a crumbling page. At least not at first. He believed that magic should live among all people, that hiding it would weaken the world. But when the founders built Hogwarts, he saw it as betrayal. He tried to stop them. They bound him beneath the city to preserve the balance. Harry stared into the fire. So what does he want now? To finish what he started? A knock at the door interrupted them. When Harry opened it, Neville entered, carrying something wrapped in cloth. Found this at the side of the fountain, he said. It was buried under the stone after the water vanished. Harry unfolded the fabric. Inside lay a small disc of metal etched with the Gryffindor lion. It pulsed faintly as if alive. It's resonating with you, Hermione murmured. The shaman's magic recognizes your lineage, courage born of the lion's heart. Neville looked uneasy. That might make Harry a target. Before they could reply, the candlelight flickered violently. A chill swept through the room, and the shadows deepened. The disc in Harry's hand glowed brighter, then lifted into the air of its own accord. A voice whispered from the darkness. The heart remembers its bearer. The flames roared gold. Harry saw flashes, a London of another age, where wizards walked openly through markets of silver and song, where a man in crimson robes stood atop St. Paul's Hill, raising a staff that shone like sunlight. His eyes were kind and sorrowful, his hair dark as the river. Guard the fire, brave one, the man said, turning toward him. For when courage burns too bright, it consumes all it touches. Then the vision shattered. The disc fell to the floor, cold once more. Hermione rushed to him. Harry, are you all right? He nodded slowly. I saw him. The shaman. Or what he used to be. Draco stepped from the shadows of the stairwell, his expression grim. Then he's chosen you. That means the balance is already tipping. Lightning flashed outside the windows. Harry clenched his fists. Then we find him before he finds me. But far below, beneath the sewers and tunnels of old London, the air stirred with ancient breath. Deep in the dark, the shaman's form began to take shape. A man woven from mist and light, eyes burning gold, Around him lay 4 empty pedestals, each carved with a sigil of the Hogwarts founders. Only one now glowed, the lion. The others waited, the serpent, the badger, the raven, sleeping but restless. The shaman's voice echoed through the stone halls, soft and sorrowful. 4 hearts, 1 world. They bound me with fear, but fear can be undone. His hand passed over the ancient sigil, and the walls trembled. Somewhere above, another fountain stilled. Somewhere farther north, the old wards of Hogwarts flickered, just for a moment, unnoticed by all within, and the shaman smiled. "Soon," he whispered, "the lion will lead the way." The next dawn broke with thunder over the Scottish Highlands. Clouds rolled low and heavy across the turrets of Hogwarts. Deep within the castle, far beneath the Great Hall, Professor Minerva McGonagall stood alone in the Chamber of Portraits. An ancient room few remembered existed. Its walls were lined with the likenesses of former headmasters, their painted eyes flickering with uneasy light. "This storm feels wrong," she murmured, clutching her shawl tighter. "There's a tremor in the wards." Phineas Nigellus Black, his portrait half shrouded in shadow, tilted his head. "You felt it too, then. The castle stirs as if something old scratches at its roots." McGonagall frowned. "You speak as though it were alive." The painted man gave a humorless smile. "Hogwarts has always been alive, headmistress. It was built atop magic older than any wand or spellbook. Perhaps now that magic remembers." Even as he spoke, a distant rumble passed through the floor. Candles flickered. A soft hum echoed from the stones, faint but persistent, like the faraway call of a horn. Hundreds of miles south in London, Harry Potter awoke to the same sound. It pulsed through his dreams, that low, steady heartbeat of the earth, and drew him from his bed in a cold sweat. The disc-bearing Gryffindor's lion lay on his nightstand, glowing faintly red. He rose, dressed quickly, and met Hermione and Draco at the Ministry's lower atrium before dawn. Neville was already waiting, a nervous energy about him. Hermione spread a new map across a stone table. "The readings came in overnight. The energy flow from the ley lines has shifted north. It's pointing toward Hogwarts." Neville swallowed. "Then whatever the shaman's doing, he's reaching for the castle." Harry's jaw tightened. "We go now." They apparated to the edge of the forbidden forest, where the air hung thick with mist and the scent of pine. The castle loomed in the distance, its windows glimmering with candlelight. It should have felt safe, familiar, yet an undercurrent of unease pulsed inside the gates. McGonagall greeted them with grave composure. "I felt you would come. The wards are faltering in ways I can't explain. Entire corridors shift during the night. Portraits whisper in languages none of us recognize." Hermione examined the air with her wand. Residual traces of elemental energy, fire, water, earth, air, all converging. "Elemental?" McGonagall echoed. Harry nodded grimly. "He's awakening the old magic, the same magic that bound him. If he unravels it, the castle might not withstand it." As they spoke, the very air trembled. A rush of wind swept through the courtyard, scattering leaves and sparks from the torches. From high above, the great bell of the North Tower began to toll, slow and deliberate, though no hand had touched it. Students peered through windows. Whispers rose through the halls. The storm outside howled louder. "Get the students to safety," Harry ordered. "Hermione, with me." Neville checked the greenhouses. "They're closest to the ley channel, under the lake." "Draco, I know where I'm needed, Draco said quietly. The chamber beneath the dungeons. The Founder's relics resonate there. McGonagall hesitated. You'll not face this alone, any of you. The castle stands with you. They split apart, their footsteps echoing across the flagstones. Harry and Hermione descended toward the library first, following the pull of the glowing disc. The deeper they went, the stronger it pulsed, until it burned against Harry's palm. The shelves of old tomes seemed to shift. In the corner of his vision, whispering with voices of their own, they reached the restricted section. The iron gate swung open without a touch. Inside, a single book hovered in the air, its cover bound in red leather, embossed with the mark of Gryffindor. The Book of the It shouldn't even exist. As she reached for it, the pages flipped of their own accord, revealing a sketch. 4 symbols joined in a circle: lion, serpent, badger, raven. Beneath it, written in archaic script, was a single phrase: when courage wakes, the first bond breaks. The ink shimmered and rearranged into new words. He walks the corridors again. At that moment, the candles guttered out. A shadow passed between the shelves. Tall, graceful, robed in smoke. The air grew warm, then unbearably hot. From the darkness stepped a man of shifting light, his eyes molten gold. Harry raised his wand. The Shaman. The figure inclined his head. Names are but echoes, Harry Potter. I have worn many. His voice was calm, deep, filled with a strange melancholy. Long ago, this castle was my ally. I laid its first stones beside the 4 who would later deny me. And now even it weeps for what was lost. Hermione's voice trembled with awe and fear. You're bound by the Founder's oath. You can't harm this place. I do not wish to harm it, the Shaman replied softly. I seek to restore it, to restore all. You built your world on fear, fear of muggles, fear of discovery. You divided what was once whole. I will heal it. By tearing everything apart? Harry demanded. The Shaman's golden eyes glowed brighter. Destruction is often the first act of healing. Before Harry could move, the floor trembled. Books burst from their shelves, whirling in a cyclone of parchment. Hermione shielded her face, shouting incantations. Harry struck with a stunning spell, but the magic passed harmlessly through the Shaman's form. Your courage burns bright, the spirit murmured. That is why the heart answered you. But even fire must bow to earth. With a flick of his hand, the stone floor rippled like water. The ground split and a surge of molten light shot upward, throwing Harry and Hermione back. When the glare cleared, the Shaman was gone. A new symbol glowed upon its page, the serpent shining green. Hermione gasped. He's awakened the next heart, Slytherin's. Far below, deep beneath the castle's foundations, Draco felt it too. The Chamber of Secrets groaned as though alive. Water dripped from the serpentine statues, and a hiss rose from the darkness where he, low, ancient, hungry. He gripped his wand, pale and determined. Not again, he muttered. A splash echoed through the chamber. From the far end, 2 golden eyes opened. Draco froze. A great shadow moved, sinuous, vast, and familiar. But this was no basilisk. Its form was made of water and smoke, shifting with every breath. The Shaman's voice drifted through the chamber. Guardian of cunning, heart of the serpent, awaken. The serpent spirit rose, coiling toward the ceiling, its body glittering with runes of green fire. Draco raised his wand, but the magic of the place was too strong. It pressed against him, heavy and irresistible. Above in the library, Harry felt the same force ripple through the stones. He's binding the hearts, Hermione cried. If he claims all 4, the Founder's magic itself will obey him. The castle groaned again. Dust rained from the ceiling. McGonagall's voice echoed through the enchanted corridors, calling all to safety. But deep beneath the school, the serpent's roar answered the lion's. The storm outside broke, lightning striking the towers in blinding arcs. From every window students saw it, a blaze of gold and green twining in the sky like a pair of battling dragons. Harry and Hermione stood at the tower's edge, staring into the storm. "It's begun," she whispered. He nodded grimly. "Then we finish it before the next heart wakes?" Night descended with the fury of a wounded beast. Storm clouds coiled over Hogwarts, rumbling with the power of spells older than language itself. Rain lashed the turrets and lightning danced, yet within the castle walls, the true tempest had already begun. Harry and Hermione made their way through the shadowed corridors, their footsteps echoing between the stone arches. The castle felt alive, restless, staircases shifting more than usual, portraits muttering in tongues that time had long forgotten. The shaman's presence lingered like smoke in the air, a reminder that the very foundation of Hogwarts trembled with unease. Down below, Draco Malfoy stood ankle-deep in the flooded Chamber of Secrets. The water shimmered faintly green, glowing from the runes that wound their way along the serpent statues. He had managed to reforge a containment ward, but cracks were already spidering across the stone floor. He muttered under his breath, "Cursed magic, you shouldn't exist." The serpent spirit's eyes blazed once more from the dark. A hiss like laughter echoed through the chamber. "Cursed? I am as old as your pride, son of ambition. I watched your house rise, and I will see what you do when faced with what you were meant to serve." Draco's grip tightened on his wand. "I don't serve anyone." A ripple of power coursed through the chamber. The water surged toward him, coiling into a serpent-shaped wave. Draco spun, shouting an incantation, "Protego Maxima!" But the shield shattered like glass against the ancient force. He stumbled backward, the force of the magic throwing him against the wall. For a moment, all went black. When he opened his eyes, he was no longer in the chamber. He stood in a grand hall, lit by hundreds of green candles. A man in silver robes sat upon a throne carved of stone serpents, his eyes cold and piercing. Salazar Slytherin himself. The founder regarded him in silence. Then he spoke, his voice like the hiss of 1,000 whispers. "You carry my bloodline's shadow, young one. Tell me, do you still think yourself master of ambition?" Draco struggled to breathe. "You're not real. Reality bends where old magic wakes. The shaman's power opens all doors, even those to memory. You have been weighed by your choices, Malfoy. Will you stand against him or join him?" "I've made my choice," Draco said through clenched teeth. "Whatever blood runs in me, I'm not you." The founder's image flickered. "Then be ready to pay the cost of defiance." The vision dissolved. Draco gasped and found himself again in the chamber, the water swirling calmly now, as if nothing had happened, but he could still feel the serpent's mark pulsing faintly against his skin. Somewhere deep inside, an ancient magic had taken notice of him, and would not forget. Up in the castle, Harry and Hermione reached the North Tower. The rain beat against the windows like furious drum fire. Beyond the glass, lightning illuminated the forbidden forest, where something vast seemed to move between the trees. Not an animal, but a shadow, in the shape of a man. Hermione pointed her wand toward the storm. He He's drawing power from the land itself. The castle's enchantments aren't enough to contain him anymore. Harry stared out into the darkness. Then we take the fight to him. Not yet, she said quickly. We don't understand what he's building. If we strike too soon, we could... Her words cut off as the entire tower shook. From below came a deep rumble, the sound of stone splitting apart. Dust rained from the ceiling. They ran to the stairs and saw a flash of green light erupt from the great hall below. When they reached it, chaos had broken loose. The enchanted ceiling had cracked open, and rain poured in from above. Lightning arced across the room, illuminating a vast sigil burned into the floor, 4 interlocking circles glowing in red, blue, yellow, and green. Students screamed as the air thrummed with raw power. At the sigil's center stood the shaman. His form was clearer now, no longer mere smoke, but flesh, veiled in light. His eyes, "Children of division," he said, his voice echoing through every corner of the hall. "You have lived too long in fear. Tonight, the fire and the serpent breathe as one. Soon the raven and badger shall rise, and the world shall remember what it is to be whole." Harry stepped forward, wand raised. "You're not healing anything. You're tearing apart what they built to protect us." The shaman regarded him gently. "Protect you from whom, Harry Potter? From yourselves? From truth? Your world hides in shadows while the other half of your kind lives in ignorance. That was never the way magic meant to live." Hermione shouted, "You can't force unity through destruction." The shaman's gaze softened. "Destruction? No. Transformation." He lifted his hand and the floor blazed brighter. The sigil began to expand, creeping up the walls, reaching toward the enchanted ceiling. The air filled with a deep hum that resonated in the bones. Then came a voice, not his, but countless others, 1,000 whispers overlapping. "The 4 shall bind, the 4 shall break. In courage, in cunning, in wisdom, in heart, the world remade." Harry's scar burned. For the first time in years it hurt, not with pain, but with the echo of power. "Hermione," he said urgently, "he's channeling through me." "Because you're linked to the heart of the lion," she said. "He's using you as a conduit." Before she could pull him away, a bolt of golden light struck from the sigil straight into Harry's chest. The world vanished in a roar of light. He awoke in silence. The great hall was gone. He stood in an endless field beneath a blood-red sky. In the distance rose 4 towers, each built from different stone, one of flame, one of water, one of air, and one of earth. The shaman stood beside him, no longer a ghost, but a man, his cloak woven of the London mist. "This is the world before your world," the shaman said quietly. "When I showed your founders this place once and they feared it, they sealed it away, trapping me with it. But now you've opened the door." Harry turned, heart pounding. "Why me?" "Because courage alone could reach me." The shaman's eyes glowed gold. "And because your heart still believes in both worlds, wizard and muggle, you can finish what I began." Harry's hand tightened around his wand. "You want me to break the veil, to destroy the boundary between magic and muggles, to free both," the shaman said. "To make a world where no child hides their gift, where courage, wisdom, ambition, and kindness are one again." Harry stared at the towers. They pulsed faintly, calling to him, and somewhere within he felt the pull of every memory he had ever known. But he also heard Hermione's voice, sharp with warning, and the cries of his children, of Ginny, of the fragile peace they had fought for. He lifted his wand. I've seen what happens when one man tries to remake the world. It never ends with freedom. The shaman's expression grew sorrowful. Then you will fight me. Lightning flashed across the crimson sky. The towers shook and the ground cracked between them. So be it, the shaman said, his form glowing brighter. But know this, Harry Potter. When the last heart awakens, even your courage may not save you. The world shattered like glass. Harry gasped awake, lying amid the ruins of the great hall. Hermione knelt beside him, eyes wide with relief. The sigil was gone, the storm outside broken, but the air still buzzed with magic. "What did you see?" she whispered. He looked toward the shattered ceiling where faint stars now peeked through the rain. "A warning," he said softly, "and a promise. Far away, beneath the lake, deep in a forgotten tunnel, something stirred, a hum of power, neither fire nor serpent, but soft as wind. And in a chamber sealed for centuries, the raven began to wake. Dawn came uncertainly over the highlands. Hogwarts stood battered yet unbroken, its towers shrouded in mist. The rain had ceased, but the scent of lightning still hung in the air, mingled with something older, a whisper of forgotten spells and restless power. Harry sat in the courtyard, wrapped in his cloak, watching the sun rise weakly behind the forbidden forest. Hermione was beside him, her quill scratching furiously across a half-burned notebook. "You said he showed you the beginning," she murmured, not looking up. "A world before the Founders, that's impossible. Even Hogwarts' oldest records don't go that far back." "He said magic walked freely then," Harry replied quietly. "That there was no divide, no secrecy, wizards and muggles together." He ran a hand through his hair, weary beyond words. "He believes he's healing what was broken." Hermione sighed, eyes dark with worry. "And yet every step he takes tears the fabric thinner. The ley lines are stretching across Britain now, not just London or here. I can feel them in the air like invisible threads pulling at the earth." Before Harry could answer, Neville hurried into the courtyard, his robes still damp from the greenhouses. "Something's happening beneath the lake," he said breathlessly. "The mer people are fleeing, entire colonies moving toward the northern depths. They say something is stirring in the ruins below." "The ruins?" Hermione asked. "There aren't any." "There are," Neville interrupted. "Older than the castle. Filch once found a collapsed tunnel that led toward them, but it was sealed. McGonagall thinks it might predate the Founders entirely." Harry rose at once. "Then that's where we go." They followed the narrow passage through the lower cellars where the air grew damp and cold. The walls glistened with condensation, and faint traces of ancient carvings ran along the stone. Not Latin, but something more primal. Hermione traced the lines with her wand. "This script matches the sigils from the shaman's work. He's woven his reach here." The tunnel sloped downward until it opened into a vast cavern lit by the glow of the lake above. Shafts of green light filtered through the water, dancing across crumbled pillars and fallen arches. It was a cathedral of the deep, a forgotten sanctum of the first magic. In the center stood a structure shaped like a bird with wings outstretched, carved from stone as pale as moonlight. The water shimmered faintly around it, and as Harry stepped closer, the faint outline of a raven appeared, etched in light. "The heart of the raven," Hermione whispered. "Rowena's essence." Neville frowned. "But it's still dormant, isn't it?" The moment he spoke, the water trembled. From beneath the statue, a current of silver light swirled upward, forming a spiraling column. The air filled with the sound of whispering voices, not frightening, but hauntingly sad. Harry felt a tug at his chest, the same pull as before when he had touched the heart of the lion. The raven's glow called to him, yet something resisted. The light rippled, coalescing into a figure. Not the shaman this time, but a woman in flowing blue robes, her eyes calm and clear as stars. "Rowena Ravenclaw," Hermione breathed, bowing her head. The spirit's voice was soft as wind through glass. "You awaken what should sleep. The balance wanes, and the old one rises to mend what he deems broken. But he forgets. Wholeness without division is chaos." Harry stepped forward. "You sealed him, didn't you?" "The shaman." Her gaze turned to him. "We sealed him because we feared him, not for malice, but for vision. He saw the world united, and in our pride we thought it folly. Perhaps it was both." Neville looked up nervously. "Can he be stopped?" Rowena's image flickered, her expression sorrowful. "He cannot be destroyed by force. His spirit is bound to the four hearts. So long as courage, cunning, wisdom, and loyalty live, but he may yet be persuaded if he remembers what he once was." Hermione's voice trembled. "How do we make him remember?" The spirit lifted a hand. From her palm, a feather of light descended, landing in Harry's grasp. "This will guide you to his heart. But beware, the path is not his alone. One of you carries his mark already." Her eyes shifted just for a moment toward the shadows behind them. Draco stepped into the faint light. He looked pale, exhausted, but his eyes burned with purpose. "Then it's me," he said flatly. "He's been whispering in my dreams since the chamber, telling me I was born to finish what the Founders began." Rowena's gaze lingered on him. "Then your choice will shape the end." Before anyone could speak, the cavern shook violently. Cracks split the floor, sending shards of stone tumbling into the dark. The spirit faded, her last words echoing like distant bells. "The raven flies. The time of reckoning nears." A roar of water filled the chamber as the lake above surged downward. The three of them scrambled back toward the tunnel, the current pulling at their legs. Spells flared, walls groaned, and the ancient chamber collapsed behind them. In a thunder of stone, they burst into the corridor, gasping for air. The tunnel sealed itself shut with a deep, resonant clang, like a door closing for the last time. Hermione leaned against the wall, drenched but alive. "She's awake now. The shaman has the strength of 3. Lion, serpent, and raven. Only Hufflepuff's heart remains." Neville looked stricken. "And that means the final piece is here. The badger's heart is under the castle gardens." Draco shook his head. "No, not under. Within. The heart of the badger was never buried in stone. It lives through loyalty, through those who guard what others forget. The castle itself may hide it. Or someone." Harry turned to him. "Someone?" Draco's eyes flickered. "Who has kept this place alive, quietly, unseen, through every war and rebuilding?" Hermione's eyes widened. "The groundskeeper." Neville's voice was barely a whisper. "Hagrid. They found him in his hut at the forest's edge, sitting by the fire with Fang asleep at his feet. His great frame seemed smaller somehow, wearied by the storm." When Harry told him what they had discovered, the half-giant's eyes widened, then grew distant. "I've been dreaming strange," Hagrid murmured. "Voices in the trees whispering about roots and hearts. Thought it was just old age creeping in." Hermione stepped forward gently. "Hagrid, We think you might be tied to the heart of the badger. Your kindness, your loyalty, that's the magic it's built on." He gave a soft, uncertain laugh. "Me? I ain't no relic, Hermione." But the fire beside him flickered gold, and the ground trembled softly. A faint hum rose from beneath the floorboards. Hagrid stared down, stunned. Blimey. The light grew brighter, and from beneath the hut, a pulse of golden warmth spread outward across the grounds, through the gardens and the castle beyond. Neville gasped. "It's responding to him." Draco's voice was low. "Then the final heart is waking, and the shaman will come for it." As if in answer, a wind swept through the forest, bending the trees. The fire dimmed, replaced by a whisper that carried across the night. The circle nears completion. Harry gripped his wand, eyes fixed on the dark woods beyond. "Then let him come," he said quietly, "because this time he won't find us unready." And somewhere deep in the forest, a pair of golden eyes opened, ancient, mournful, and watching. Tea violently but gently, like morning mist fading before the sun. The shaman looked up toward the towers, his face peaceful. "Perhaps your world will heal itself, brave ones. I will trust it to you." And with that his form dissolved, the golden light scattering into the sky like sparks from a dying fire. The storm ceased. Silence returned to Hogwarts. Hagrid sank to his knees beside the fading glow of the heart, tears streaking through the soot on his face. "He's gone," he murmured. "No," Hermione said softly, gazing at the horizon where the clouds broke into sunlight. "Not gone, just resting." Harry rose slowly, his heart heavy yet calm. "And maybe this time," he said, "the city will stay awake." The days that followed passed in a hush, as though the very air feared to disturb what had been laid to rest. The storms had faded, the skies had cleared, and for the first time in many nights, the stars above Hogwarts shone steady and bright. Yet though peace lingered over the castle, Harry knew the balance they had restored hung by a thread. The shaman's light had vanished into the heavens, but its warmth still lived in the earth. The four hearts, lion, serpent, raven, and badger, had retreated to their ancient slumber, their magic coursing through the land unseen. The castle no longer trembled, yet its stones seemed changed somehow, humming with quiet awareness, as though Hogwarts itself had grown wiser through the ordeal. Harry stood on the grounds one evening watching the sun sink behind the western hills. The golden light bathed the battlements, glinting off the high windows of the great hall. From within came the soft murmur of students' laughter, tentative but real. The world had endured. Still, beneath that fragile joy, questions lingered. He turned at the sound of footsteps. Hermione approached, her cloak billowing lightly in the evening wind. "The Ministry wants your report by tomorrow," she said. "Kingsley insists it be as detailed as possible. Every trace of what happened, the visions, the spirits, the shaman's binding." Harry smiled faintly. "You'll make sure it's readable, won't you?" "My version would just say we survived barely." Hermione's lips twitched into a smile. "But the truth of it, the parts no report can hold, that's what will matter most. He wasn't what we thought." "No," Harry said quietly. "He wasn't." They stood in silence, listening to the distant cries of owls. The air smelled of grass and rain. "Do you think he's really gone?" Hermione asked at last. Harry gazed toward the dark outline of the forbidden forest. "No," he said, "not gone. I think he's part of the world again. Maybe that's what he wanted all along." Inside the castle, Hagrid sat before his fire, the great hound Fang sprawled at his feet. The hut still bore scars from the battle, cracked beams, scorched stones, but the warmth within was comforting. He sipped his tea, eyes drifting toward the small box on the table. Within lay the fragment of golden light that had remained after the shaman's passing, a seed of magic, faint but alive. It pulsed like a heartbeat, slow and steady. Hagrid couldn't bring himself to hand it to the ministry. It didn't feel right. Some things, he thought, belonged to the earth alone. He leaned back with a sigh. "Sleep easy, ye old ghost," he murmured. "You've earned your rest." The light flickered once as if in answer. Draco Malfoy walked the outer corridors of the castle long after sunset. His footsteps echoed softly against the stone, each one measured and contemplative. He had been silent since the shaman's departure, speaking little even to Harry or Hermione. Yet something in his bearing had changed. He paused before a cracked mirror, one of many scattered remnants from the storm. His reflection looked older, more haunted, but in his eyes there was no longer that sharp, defensive gleam of old. He raised a hand to his chest where a faint mark still glowed beneath the fabric of his shirt, the serpent's sigil, burned there by the magic of the chamber. "You said my choice would shape the end," he murmured to the empty air. "So what now?" Yet as he turned to leave, a soft voice whispered through the stillness. Not the shaman's this time, but one far gentler. "Then make it a beginning?" Draco paused, startled. For a moment the torches flickered blue, then steadied. He smiled faintly, almost despite himself, and continued on his way. In the weeks that followed, Hogwarts returned to rhythm. Classes resumed, laughter filled the halls once more, and the damage done to the castle slowly healed. Yet beneath its foundations, ancient runes glowed faintly in the dark, marking where the hearts had once awakened. The earth itself remembered. Hermione devoted herself to research, poring through centuries-old manuscripts, tracing the earliest mentions of the London shaman. Her parchment overflowed with theories, timelines, and unanswered questions. One evening she sat by the library window, quill still, staring into the dying sunset. The words Rowena's spirit had spoken haunted her. He may yet be persuaded, if he remembers what he once was. She wondered if, somewhere in the world, a child might one day dream of golden light beneath the city, or hear whispers in the wind calling them toward courage, wisdom, loyalty, and cunning. Magic, after all, never truly ended. It only changed shape. Meanwhile, Neville tended to the grounds with renewed devotion. The greenhouses bloomed brighter than ever. The plants seemed to thrive in ways they hadn't before. He often caught the faintest shimmer in the soil, like sunlight beneath the roots. One morning, while replanting near the edge of the lake, he unearthed a single feather of silver light. It dissolved in his palm, leaving behind the scent of rain and the whisper of an unseen voice. "The raven watches still." He smiled to himself, unsure if he'd imagined it, and carried on with his work. As for Harry, the shaman's memory lingered like an echo in his thoughts. Neither warning nor promise, but a steady presence, reminding him that even the brightest light could be born from old wounds. On the first clear night of June, he walked alone to the edge of the forbidden forest. The moon hung high, reflected in the calm waters of the lake. Somewhere beneath those depths lay the sealed ruins, the raven's sanctum, and the ancient marks of a forgotten age. He knelt, touching the cool earth. "You wanted a world without fear," he whispered. "Maybe one day we'll build it." The wind stirred the trees, gentle as a sigh. For an instant he thought he saw a figure standing among the shadows, a tall man cloaked in gold, watching silently. Then the image faded, leaving only moonlight and mist. Harry rose and turned toward the castle. The windows shone warmly in the dark, each light a reminder of the courage that endured. Behind those walls, children laughed, studied, and dreamed, proof that hope, however fragile, had survived yet another test. As he crossed the bridge, he glanced once more toward the city far to the south. London's skyline glimmered faintly on the horizon, its towers piercing the clouds. Somewhere beneath its streets, deep in the earth's hidden veins, the shaman's power slept again. But sometimes, on quiet nights, when the wind swept through the city's alleys and the river whispered against its banks, the old magic stirred, lamps flickered with golden flame, the air trembled with the faint roar of a lion. Those who heard it spoke of courage awakened, of ancient guardians watching from the dark. Most dismissed it as fancy. Yet among the wizarding folk who knew the truth, a single name lingered in quiet reverence: the London Shaman. And though centuries might pass before he rose again, his story, woven now into the hearts of Hogwarts children, would never fade. Autumn came to Hogwarts. The scent of wood smoke drifted across the lake, and the first frost glimmered on the grass beneath the early morning sun. It had been 3 months since the shaman's light vanished into the sky, and though the castle lived once more in laughter and learning, something ancient still lingered in its silence. Harry often found himself awake before dawn, walking the paths that wound through the grounds. He could feel it beneath his boots, the quiet pulse of the 4 hearts buried deep in the foundations of the world. They no longer stirred as they had in the days of the storm, but their rhythm remained, a heartbeat that spoke of magic alive and watching. Hermione joined him one such morning, a pile of parchment tucked under her arm. "I've been studying the traces left behind," she said, as they walked toward the forest's edge. "Every magical surge the shaman created is gone, but the ley lines have stabilized. It's strange, Harry. It's as if he mended them before he vanished." Harry stopped at the edge of the lake. The water was calm, reflecting the rose of dawn. Maybe he did. Maybe that was what he meant to do all along. Not destroy the world, heal it. Hermione frowned, thoughtful. He was powerful enough, but why use us? Why you? Harry smiled faintly. Because he said courage was the key. Maybe he needed someone who'd walk through fire without knowing if it would burn or save them. Hermione looked at him sidelong. "You sound more and more like Dumbledore every year." He laughed softly, and for a while they walked in silence, the morning quiet and golden. Yet as they turned back toward the castle, Harry paused. In the far distance, across the lake, a ripple disturbed the water. Then faintly, a shimmer of light, blue and gold, twisting together like smoke. It vanished almost at once. He frowned. "Did you see that?" Hermione followed his gaze, but the lake lay still. Probably a reflection, or the merpeople. But Harry knew reflections did not hum with magic. Something deep beneath the water was still awake. Elsewhere beyond the castle walls, London was stirring with quiet wonder. Muggle newspapers told of strange lights over the Thames, of clocks that stopped for exactly 1 heartbeat before striking the hour, of children who claimed to see golden lions reflected in puddles after the rain. In the shadows of Diagon Alley, shopkeepers spoke in low voices. "Old power's moving again," said one witch behind the counter of flourish and blots. "You can feel it in the air, can't you?" And somewhere in the labyrinth of London's under streets, beneath stone, beneath dust, beneath time, a whisper of light still pulsed in the dark, as though the city itself remembered the shaman who had once guarded it. At Hogwarts, the year pressed on. Lessons filled the days, laughter filled the nights, and the wounds of the past healed in quiet ways. Yet one figure did not share in the rhythm of the world's peace. Draco Malfoy stood alone on the astronomy tower one evening, watching clouds gather over the highlands. The serpent's mark on his chest had not faded. Some nights, when the wind blew just right, he could still hear faint whispers, voices older than memory. "You carry my bloodline's shadow," Salazar Slytherin had told him in the vision. Draco wondered what that meant now that the shaman was gone. The old world had stirred within him, and though it had not consumed him, it had left its mark. He drew his wand, holding it up against the gathering storm. "You wanted ambition to serve purpose," he murmured to the night. "Maybe that's what I'll do." Lightning flared across the horizon, silver against the clouds. For a moment, Draco's reflection gleamed in the wand light. Not hard or cold, but calm, resolved. He turned away from the edge. The time for regrets was over. In the castle library, Hermione sat surrounded by open tomes. She was trying to compile what little remained of the shaman's legend, his teachings, his connection to the founders, the nature of his binding. When she closed her eyes, she could still hear his voice. Destruction is the first act of healing. Perhaps he had been right in a way. The war against him had not ended in hatred, but in understanding. In forcing them to face him, he had forced them to face the truth of what they were protecting. Her thoughts were broken by the soft knock of Neville at the door. He entered with dirt still clinging to his hands and sleeves. "Sorry to interrupt," he said sheepishly, "but you should see the gardens. Something's happening." They hurried down together. Outside, twilight had fallen, and the grounds glowed with soft luminescence. The vines near the castle walls were blooming out of season, their flowers shimmering gold and silver. From beneath the soil came a low hum, steady and deep. Neville crouched, pressing his hand to the earth. "It's the heart of the badger," he whispered. "It's singing." Hermione felt the vibration too, gentle but strong, radiating from the ground like a pulse of life. "Not in warning," she said slowly, "in harmony." The air shimmered faintly, and for an instant they both saw it, the faint outline of a figure walking across the gardens, tall and golden, fading into mist. The shaman. He looked neither sad nor angry now, only peaceful. He raised his hand in silent blessing, and then he was gone. Neville stared after him, awed. "Do you think he's watching over us?" Hermione smiled softly. "I think he always was." Later that night, Harry found himself once more before the lake. The moon shone full, silvering the ripples. He felt an ache of memory of everything they had seen and lost and learned. He spoke into the stillness, unsure if anyone or anything would hear. "If you can see us," he said quietly, "you were right about one thing, but we'll guard it our way by choice, not by fear." The wind rose, carrying the scent of pine and cold water. Across the surface of the lake, light flared briefly, shaping itself into a lion of pure flame. It roared once, soundless and bright, then dissolved into the stars. Harry smiled. Behind him the castle bells began to chime midnight, each toll echoing like a heartbeat. He turned and walked back toward the warmth of Hogwarts, his shadow long on the grass, his steps steady and sure. High above, the castle windows glowed with firelight. Within, students whispered tales of the battle beneath London and the shaman of the golden light. Some said he had been a god, others said a ghost. But the true story of courage, loyalty, ambition, and wisdom bound in fragile harmony would be told for generations to come. And far away, in the heart of the great city, where the Thames whispered to its ancient stones, the golden light beneath London flickered once, softly, like a sigh, before settling into silence once more. It would sleep again for many ages, waiting for a world brave enough to dream of unity once more. Winter crept upon the castle, laying its silver fingers over stone and tower alike. The lake froze in shimmering stillness, and the forbidden forest wore a crown of frost. Each dawn brought quiet beauty, yet beneath the calm surface, something restless stirred. A feeling that the tale of the shaman had not ended, merely folded itself into the turning of seasons. Harry had thought peace would feel simple. It did not. It lived in uneasy moments, in the spaces between duty and memory. He had returned to London more than once since the battle, walking the familiar streets of Charing Cross, where their quest had begun. The world of muggles bustled on, unaware of how close it had come to waking a legend. Yet sometimes, when he passed a glimmer in the puddles or the flicker of gold along the river, he felt that faint hum again, the old heartbeat of the city. One morning in late December, Hermione arrived at his office in the ministry. She carried with her a battered satchel overflowing with parchment. Her hair was wild from wind and snow, and her eyes bright with a spark he hadn't seen since their days at Hogwarts. "I found something," she said, setting the bag on his desk. In one of the old archives under the Department of Mysteries, a scroll written in the founder's own hand, fragmented but legible. It speaks of the Covenant of the Four, a ritual meant to preserve balance between magic and the natural world. Harry leaned forward. "The shaman's work?" "Not exactly," Hermione replied. "It was inspired by him. Godric, Helga, Rowena, and Salazar each contributed a part, a promise, to maintain the harmony he once guarded. They feared what would happen if that balance ever broke." Harry's brow furrowed. "You think the ritual failed?" "Not failed," she said, eyes glinting with quiet excitement. "Interrupted. It's possible the founders never completed it. That's why their magic fractured into 4 hearts. Why it could be corrupted, even manipulated." He sat back in silence. Outside, snow fell against the windows of the Auror office, blurring the city beyond. If they meant to finish it, maybe the shaman tried to do what they couldn't, Harry said at last. "Maybe that's what all of this was." Hermione smiled faintly. "Perhaps. But it means something else too. The covenant can still be completed." Harry met her gaze, alarmed. "Hermione, we barely survived. The last time those forces were stirred, we don't even know what the ritual would do." Her voice was calm, resolute. "Balance isn't destruction, Harry. It's restoration. If we can mend what was broken, it might prevent something worse from rising later. Magic itself is better we guide it than let it turn wild." He looked at her for a long moment. "You sound like him." She smiled sadly. Maybe he was right about some things. The days shortened, and as the year turned, Harry, Hermione, Neville, and Draco met again at Hogwarts, under McGonagall's watchful eye. The castle welcomed them like old friends, its halls warm with candle light, its towers gleaming under the snow. McGonagall listened as Hermione explained her discovery, her expression grave. "The covenant was never meant for mortal hands," she said slowly. "If the founders themselves feared to complete it, you must understand the danger." "I do," Hermione answered softly, but the shaman's return proved the danger of leaving it undone. Draco stood near the fireplace, his silver eyes flickering in the light. "And what if the ritual brings him back? What if finishing it binds him again instead of releasing balance?" "Then we will know," Hermione said, "and we'll be ready." McGonagall studied her a long moment before nodding once. "Very well. Hogwarts has stood through darker times. If the Founder's magic stirs again, perhaps it's time their descendants face it." That night they gathered in the Chamber of Portraits beneath the castle, where the headmasters of the past gazed down from their frames, whispering softly. Candles flickered, and the air shimmered faintly with enchantments older than the walls themselves. Hermione spread the ancient scroll across the stone table. Its ink was faded, the script half in runes, half in an archaic dialect. 4 circles intertwined upon it, each bearing a single word: fortitude, wisdom, devotion, resolve. "These are the cores of the covenant," she said quietly, "the living reflection of the 4 houses. To complete it, we must channel each in harmony." Neville stepped forward first. "Devotion," he said. "Hufflepuff's gift." His hand glowed softly as it touched the circle of gold. "Draco, resolve." Green light sparked beneath his palm, coiling like serpents. Hermione laid her hand upon the blue circle. "Wisdom." And Harry, taking a slow breath, placed his hand upon the last. "Fortitude." The scroll blazed with light, the circles burning with color. The portraits stirred, voices rising in a chorus of awe and warning. The very floor vibrated as power filled the chamber, ancient, vast, and pure. Then from the center of the circles, a form began to take shape, neither ghost nor shadow, but light woven of all 4 hues. The shaman. His voice echoed through the hall, softer than before, stripped of the power that had once nearly unmade the world. "So," he said, almost gently, "you seek what even the Founders could not finish." Hermione did not falter. "We seek balance. You tried to heal it through force. We'll do it through harmony." The shaman inclined his head. "Then show me." The chamber darkened as if the world itself had drawn a breath. Their 4 lights joined, intertwining above the scroll, spinning faster and faster until they merged into one, white and radiant, a sphere of creation. The shaman stepped forward, placing his hand into the light, then let the circle close. The magic flared, the castle shook. For an instant, Harry felt himself suspended between worlds, the hum of Hogwarts and the distant pulse of London both alive within him. The light poured outward, flooding every stone, every hall, every corner of the land. And then, as suddenly as it had come, the brilliance faded. The chamber was still. The scroll lay upon the table, its ink gone, its task complete. The shaman stood at the far end of the room, no longer golden but mortal, flesh and breath, eyes weary yet serene. "It is done," he said. "The covenant is whole. The world will not need guardians such as I again." He turned to them with a faint smile. "Now I may rest as a man, not a myth." Before their eyes his form shimmered, dissolving into soft light that drifted upward, vanishing into the stones above. Hermione's voice broke the silence. "What happens now?" Harry looked toward the ceiling where the faint trace of that light lingered, like dawn breaking through night. "Now," he he said. We keep the balance ourselves. When they emerged into the night, snow was falling thickly over the castle. The stars glimmered faintly between clouds, and in the distance the lake gleamed like glass. They stood together for a while, saying nothing. The wind carried the scent of frost and pine, and somewhere far below, the heart of the badger pulsed, once steady and sure. The world was quiet again, but its quiet was not emptiness, it was promise. Spring came to Hogwarts as though the world itself wished to forget the storms that had nearly undone it. Snow melted from the hills, the lake glittered once more beneath the April sun, and the air was rich with the scent of grass newly awakened. The castle's walls, once cracked and weary from strain, gleamed under McGonagall's watchful care. Yet though all seemed peaceful, there was a quiet sense of expectancy in the very stones, as if the school remembered what had passed and waited for what might yet come. Harry found himself returning more often to the castle long after his duties as an Auror had drawn him away. It felt less like a place of work now and more like an old friend, one that had fought beside him and learned, as he had, that healing does not mean forgetting. One golden afternoon he crossed the courtyard and found Hagrid tending to the gardens with Neville. The half-giant's laughter rumbled across the open air as Fang bounded around his knees. "Mind the seedlings, you great lump," Hagrid called, shaking his head fondly. Neville straightened, brushing soil from his hands. "He still thinks every plant needs dragon. The gardens might glow in the dark at this rate." Harry smiled, the sound of their banter a balm to his mind. "Better glowing than gone," he said. "After what they've been through, I think they deserve a bit of overfeeding." Neville's expression softened. "You feel it too, don't you? The ground hums differently now." He pressed a palm to the soil. Alive but calmer, like the magic's breathing in rhythm again. Harry nodded slowly. "The shaman's work, maybe, or the covenant. Whatever we finished that night, it didn't just seal power. It shared it." Hagrid leaned on his spade, his eyes bright and distant. "Reckon he's still watching, wherever he went." "There's good in that sort of magic, Harry. The kind that doesn't fade with the years." Harry looked toward the forbidden forest. Between the trunks, shafts of sunlight pierced the green gloom, and for an instant he thought he saw a faint shimmer of gold drifting through the mist. Not threatening, but tranquil, almost like a memory taking form. He smiled faintly. "Aye," he said, "maybe he is." That evening Hermione arrived at the castle, parchment under her arm and excitement in her eyes. "We've had reports from London," she said, joining Harry in the headmistress's study. The ministry's instruments recorded a pulse of magic near the river. Small, controlled, but unmistakable. McGonagall frowned. "A remnant of the shaman?" "Perhaps not," Hermione said. "It could be something new. The ley lines are realigning, connecting places that had long been dormant. The balance is stabilizing. Faster than expected." Harry crossed his arms, thoughtful. "So the covenant worked?" "Yes," she said softly. "But it did more than we understood. It reconnected magic to the world in ways we've never seen. Plants growing in barren ground. Muggles reporting dreams that match magical visions. Even the veil in the Department of Mysteries has quieted." McGonagall's eye. "And you are certain this is good news?" Hermione hesitated. "It depends what we do with it." Harry smiled wryly. "You mean what we do with it or what everyone else will?" She sighed. "Both. The founders built Hogwarts to guide magic, not command it. The shaman wanted to free it entirely. Maybe this is the middle path, a world where both can exist. McGonagall nodded slowly. Then it falls to you, as it always has, to ensure it remains that way. The next morning, Harry and Hermione took the train to London. It was strange to ride the same rails that once carried them to Hogwarts as children. Yet now the journey felt weightier, filled with the echoes of what they had seen. The city awaited them, vast, humming, ancient as the stones beneath its streets. They arrived near the Thames at dawn, the air cool and silver. Mist curled over the water, and in its shifting veil, Harry saw faint golden motes flickering above the river's surface. Hermione lifted a small device, half wand, half compass. Its needles spun wildly before pointing downstream. "There," she whispered. They followed the embankment until they reached an archway half buried beneath an old bridge in the same place where, years ago, the heart of the lion had first awakened. The air was quiet, charged with faint warmth. A narrow tunnel led beneath the street, the walls slick with time. Harry's wand light revealed the old carvings they had once seen, the 4 beasts of Hogwarts etched into the stone. But where before they had been broken and dim, now they shone with life. The lion, serpent, raven, and badger glowed faintly, their eyes alight. "It's changed," Hermione breathed. "Look, the symbols are joined now, no longer 4 separate paths." Harry traced a hand over the carvings. They pulsed softly beneath his touch, alive with power but no longer unstable. The air around them hummed with quiet harmony. The balance he wanted, it's here. From the far end of the tunnel came a soft whisper, not of menace but of song. The same ancient voice that had once called to them spoke again, faint and peaceful. "Guard the fire, brave one, for when courage burns, the world remembers." Hermione froze. That voice... Harry smiled faintly. A farewell. The sound faded into the echo of dripping water, and the tunnel fell still once more. By evening, they returned to Hogwarts, the sky painted in gold and violet. The great hall was filled with students laughing over supper, their chatter warm and alive. It felt, Harry thought, as though the castle itself were breathing contentedly. After centuries of unrest, he found himself standing at the window overlooking the lake, watching the stars rise one by one. He'd seen too much darkness in his life to believe that peace would last forever. Yet this peace, fragile though it was, felt different, earned. Hermione joined him quietly. "The world's changing," she said. "I can feel it in the air. Old boundaries fading, new ones forming. It won't all be easy." "It never is," Harry said, "but maybe it'll be right." They stood in silence, watching the reflection of the stars ripple across the water. For a moment, the light upon the lake formed a shape, 4 points joined by a circle, the symbol of the covenant. Then it faded, leaving only moonlight and calm. Later that night, as the castle slept, a faint wind stirred the corridors. Portraits rustled, torches flickered, and in the highest tower the Sorting Hat stirred from its dusty perch. Its stitched mouth curved into a small, knowing smile. Courage, wisdom, loyalty, and cunning, it whispered to the empty hall. Together again, at last. Outside, the stars burned brighter, and the old magic of Hogwarts, renewed, restored, and at peace, hummed softly through the night, waiting for the next summer. Drifted gently over the highlands, bringing with it long days and evenings, the color of honeyed amber. The wind across the lake was warm, rippling the water in soft, silver waves, and the castle walls glowed beneath the sun, as though the stones themselves were remembering light after a long season of shadow. It had been almost a year since the covenant was sealed, and though life within the wizarding world carried on, something beneath the surface had changed, subtle but undeniable. Spells cast with truer ease, charms blooming stronger, plants responding to whispers rather than wands. Even the Muggle world seemed touched by quiet miracles, unseasonal blossoms sprouting in city streets, storms breaking early before they turned to harm, children laughing at invisible lights that danced before their eyes. Magic, once hidden and restrained, had begun to breathe again. Harry stood upon the bridge that arched across the lake, the twilight breeze brushing through his hair. Below, the water shimmered with faint golden light, as though something deep within still pulsed with the memory of the shaman's heart. The peace was fragile, but it was real, the kind that needed no spells to hold it. He heard the familiar sound of footsteps behind him. "Still keeping watch?" Hermione asked softly as she approached. "Old habits," Harry said with a faint smile. "Every time the wind stirs, I half expect to see him again. Tall, golden, and cryptic." Hermione chuckled quietly. "If he meant to return, I think he would have done so by now. But I suppose in a way he did. The world feels different because of him." Harry nodded, gazing out at the water. He wanted to heal what was divided. I used to think he was wrong, that keeping our world secret was the only way to keep it safe. But now you wonder if he was right, she finished. He glanced at her. "Maybe a little." Hermione sighed, her eyes soft with thought. The founders feared chaos, the shaman feared silence. Maybe both were right in their time. The covenant let the two truths meet, like bridges between rivers that never meant to cross. They stood in silence, the golden light deepening as the sun dipped below the horizon. From the castle behind them drifted laughter, students practicing spells in the courtyard, their voices rising like birds. Harry smiled faintly. "Listen to that," he murmured. "If he could hear them, I think even the shaman would have been content." That evening the great hall glowed with lanterns. Long tables were dressed in silver and scarlet, emerald and gold, as the end-of-year feast began. Students clapped and cheered as Headmistress McGonagall rose to speak, her sharp eyes soft with pride. "My dear students," she began, "another year draws to a close, one unlike any before. You have studied well, and you have faced more change than perhaps any generation since the founding of Hogwarts itself. But change, as we know, is not to be feared. It is the heartbeat of magic, the rhythm that keeps our world alive." Applause filled the hall. Even the portrait seemed to smile as the candles swayed gently overhead. Harry sat among the staff at the high table, between Neville and Hermione. As the plates filled and laughter rippled through the hall, he let his gaze wander over the sea of young faces, brave, bright, and curious. Each of them carried the spark of a new world, one shaped not by fear but by wonder. For a fleeting moment he thought he saw a golden figure standing at the far end of the hall, near the ancient doors, watching, not haunting, a presence of quiet pride. Then it was gone, like a reflection in candlelight. After the feast, when the castle had grown still, Harry walked alone through the corridors. The torches burned low, casting soft. He found himself drawn downward, through winding staircases and long-forgotten passages, until he stood once more before the sealed entrance of the old chamber beneath the castle, where once the shaman's voice had first been heard. The stone arch was smooth now, the carvings faint but intact. The sigils of the four founders glowed faintly, their light woven together in one endless loop. Harry ran his fingers across them, feeling warmth beneath his palm. "You kept your promise," he said quietly to the air. A whisper answered him, so soft it might have been the breath of the earth itself. "And so did you." He smiled, a warmth spreading through his chest. "Rest well, then." The chamber gave no reply, only the echo of silence, deep, eternal, and at peace. Weeks later, Harry stood again in London near the bank of the Thames. The river flowed calm and wide, its surface glimmering beneath the morning sun. He could almost feel the hum of life beneath the city, the same pulse he had once feared, now gentle and sure. Children ran along the embankment, tossing crumbs to gulls that wheeled overhead. Among them a small boy paused, staring down into the water. He frowned, then smiled. "Look, Mom," the boy said, pointing. "There's a lion in the river." His mother laughed, seeing nothing but ripples. But Harry, standing a few yards away, followed the child's gaze, and for the briefest heartbeat, saw it too. A golden lion made of light and current, padding silently through the depths. Then it vanished, leaving only sunlight on the waves. Harry's chest tightened with quiet wonder. The shaman's legacy had not faded after all, and it had become part of the world itself. That night, back at Hogwarts, the stars blazed bright over the castle. Hermione sat in the library, parchment scattered before her, though her quill lay still. Neville tended to the last of the greenhouses, singing softly to the flowers that swayed. Draco walked the parapets alone, the serpent's mark faint now, nearly gone. Each of them, in their own way, carried the shaman's gift forward. Not as power, but as memory. High above, in the tallest tower, the sorting hat rested beside the flickering torchlight. It spoke softly, as if to itself. "They dreamed of 4, it murmured, "and found one. Balance at last." Its stitched mouth curved into something like a smile, and the flame beside it flared brighter, casting long, dancing shadows across the ancient stone. Outside, the night deepened, and the song of the wind carried across the grounds. Somewhere within that sound, faint, eternal, and kind, was the whisper of the London shaman, watching still, his task fulfilled. The dawn that followed was soft and pale, brushed in silver mist. Hogwarts rose from the morning haze like a dream between worlds, its towers veiled, its windows gleaming faintly in the new light. The war, the storm, and the shaman's shadow had all faded into memory, yet the echo of that ancient magic still pulsed gently beneath the land like the heartbeat of the world itself. Harry Potter stood once more upon the bridge overlooking the lake. The years since the Covenant had changed him in quiet ways, not older so much as steadier, as if the weight he carried no longer bowed him, but anchored him instead. The world had not returned to how it once was. It had grown into something new, alive with unseen harmony. He watched the sunlight gather over the rippling surface of the water, catching the faint shimmer of golden veins far below, remnants of the shaman's light still winding through the depths. The piece felt whole now, not borrowed. From behind came the sound of soft steps. Hermione approached, a parchment tucked beneath her arm, her robes fluttering in the morning wind. She smiled as she reached him. "You're out early again." He nodded. "Couldn't sleep. The castle's too quiet these days." "It means we've done our part." They stood side by side, watching the mist drift like ghosts across the lake. "Do you ever wonder if he's truly gone?" Harry asked at last. Hermione considered. "Gone? No, changed? Yes. Magic like that doesn't die. It becomes something else. Maybe it flows through the wind or the water or through us. Perhaps that was always his intention." Harry smiled faintly. To become part of the world, he wanted to heal. Exactly. The silence between them was comfortable. Around the lake, the forest stirred to life. Birds calling, branches swaying, sunlight spilling across the emerald grass. The ordinary beauty of it all felt like a quiet miracle. Later that morning, a meeting gathered within the great hall. Representatives from the ministry, scholars from Beauxbaton and Durmstrang, and envoys of the centaurs of the Forbidden Forest sat among the professors. Even the mer people had sent word, their songs echoing faintly from the lake. The topic was the same one whispered across every magical community in Europe: the new balance. Hermione stood before them, parchment in hand. "The covenant that once bound the 4 hearts of Hogwarts has been restored," she began. "Its magic now weaves through the natural world, as it once did, guiding rather than governing. It strengthens every act of courage, loyalty, wisdom, and ambition that serves harmony." A murmur ran through the hall. One witch from the ministry raised her hand. "You're saying the shaman's power still exists?" "Not as power," Hermione said firmly, "as presence. He is not a god to be worshipped nor a force to be feared. He is part of the balance we all share, the reminder that the world itself is alive." Draco, seated at the far table, spoke next. "And what happens when someone tries to unbalance it again? When ambition outweighs reason? When courage blinds wisdom?" Hermione met his gaze. "Balance has its own guardians now. Not one shaman, but all of us." Her words hung in the hall like a promise. That evening, when the guests had gone and the halls had quieted once more, Harry found Draco standing alone near the courtyard fountain. The serpent's mark that had once burned upon his chest was nearly invisible now, faded to the faintest glimmer beneath his collar. "You stayed," Harry said quietly. Draco smirked without turning. "It's quieter here than the ministry, and the castle doesn't stare when I walk past." Harry stepped beside him. "You've changed?" Draco gave a small shrug. "Maybe. Or maybe I just stopped fighting ghosts that weren't mine to carry." They stood in silence, the fountain's water glinting like liquid starlight. After a moment, Draco spoke again, softer now. "Do you ever think the founders would approve of us? Of what we did?" Harry smiled. "I think they'd be surprised." A brief laugh escaped Draco, genuine and fleeting. "And that's something at least." As the weeks turned, summer deepened. Fields of wildflowers unfurled beyond the castle, and the hum of bees replaced the hush of winter winds. Life resumed its rhythm, gentle and sure. Neville spent long days in the greenhouses, tending plants that now grew with unnatural vigor. Blossoms glowing faintly at night, vines humming with soft magic. He had come to understand that the shaman's gift lived strongest in the earth. Each seed held memory now, each sprout a fragment of balance reborn. Sometimes when the air was still, he heard faint whispers among the leaves, a voice neither human nor ghostly. "Guard what grows," it would murmur, and he always answered softly, "I will." One night, under a sky streaked with shooting stars, Hermione and Harry climbed the astronomy tower. Below them, the castle shimmered in the moonlight, its towers silver, its lake glowing faintly gold. Every time I think I understand Hogwarts, it shows me something new. Harry nodded. It's alive now more than ever. The shaman gave it back its voice. They leaned against the old stone balustrade, listening to the quiet hum that ran through the air. It was subtle. A vibration felt rather than heard, the live-in music of magic itself. Do you think the Muggle world feels it too? Hermione asked after a while. Harry thought of the lights over the Thames, of the child who had seen the lion in the river. I think they will, he said. In small ways, a kindness when it's least expected, a spark of courage where there was none before. Maybe that's how it spreads. Hermione smiled. A world healed not by spells, but by hearts. The stars shone brighter, as if in agreement. When dawn came, Harry walked once more through the grounds. Mist coiled across the fields, and the air was cool, sweet, with the scent of dew. He paused at the edge of the forbidden forest, gazing toward the trees that had once hidden so many dangers, now quiet, calm. Somewhere deep within, an unseen light flickered, faint and golden. He felt no fear, only peace. Raising his wand, he whispered a simple spell, tracing a circle of light that hovered before him. For courage, he murmured. Another line joined it. For wisdom, a third. For loyalty, and the last, for ambition. The 4 lines interwove, forming a single glowing sigil, the mark of the covenant shining one final time. Then he lowered his wand, and the light rose into the morning air, fading slowly into the sunrise. Rest well, old friend, Harry said softly. Your world is safe. The breeze stirred, carrying the faintest echo of a roar, not of threat, but of triumph. The lion's call woven into the wind, and as the first light of day broke over the towers of Hogwarts, gilding its spires in gold, Harry turned toward the castle, the heart of the world renewed, and walked home.